Hey everyone, welcome back to another video where I will be attempting to remaster my favorite show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. And by remaster, I mean that I'll be expanding the 4:3 aspect ratio from the original to fit a more widescreen experience. I'll be doing this without having to crop the scenes, as that removes part of the image which I really don't want. If you haven't checked out my other videos in this, I guess series is the right word for it, then you should know that I've been documenting my journey of trying out animation for the first time through this little project I decided to do. I want to make sure that I add something new to each video so they don't get too stale. Let me know down below if I succeeded or not. So far in my previous two videos of mine, I worked mainly on the trio of Sokka, Katara, and Aang. Oh, and also Appa's snot. Cause, why not? Why snot? I'm sorry. But now I'm going to do something so challenging that not even Firelord Ozai himself had the capacity to achieve this feat. And that's to give my boy Zuko some love and attention. In this video, I'll be taking you through the journey of me working on a few scenes from not only the first episode, but also the second one. And as you might have guessed by now, the focus will be entirely on Zuko. If you're wondering about the tools that I used, I'll be putting all the information in the description box down below, so check it out. Before we get started, please like the video if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more, and most importantly, please enjoy the video. In this shot of the show, we stumble upon the location where our banished prince calls home for the past couple of years. This small vessel, which is a Fire Nation cruiser, is where we see Zuko in anticipation for his upcoming battle with the Avatar, in order to not only go back home, but most importantly, reclaim his true treasure, his One Piece, which is his honor.
I must capture the Avatar to regain my honor!
I wanted to start off this video with an easy scene, to get the ball rolling. And this is probably as easy as it gets. My focus immediately went towards these rocks on the sides, which honestly felt like just doing more icebergs, so I was in my elements. After that fairly easy task, I had to do some minor keyframes to match the background, and once that was completed, I moved on to animating the waves from the ocean below. This was a fairly easy and straightforward process, and it's something that I've done previously, so it took almost no time at all. I think it looks fairly good, but it's a very short scene, so let's quickly move on over to the extreme close-up of everyone's favorite uncle. This was also really easy as well, and I'm moving through these scenes pretty fast mainly because they're quite short. But this scene included completing part of the ship, which gave me some trouble due to the texture of it. I also worked on the sky along with Iroh's shoulder and a bit of his hair. Iroh doesn't stay too still in this scene, so I had to match his movements throughout, but it was extremely easy. Immediately following this is our first action sequence in not only this video, but for me in general. I was very excited for this scene since it will be the first time that I'll get to work with firebending. But before I moved on to the firebending itself, I had to make sure that the ship was all filled out. The texture of the metal definitely gave me a lot of trouble and took a lot of my time. I also got a bit impatient and decided to do the firebending anyways, and honestly it was a lot of fun due to there being no strict guideline or limitations. I just added where I felt the fire will go, and afterwards I worked on my least favorite part in animating, and that's working with the keyframes in the background. I had to match this boulder as it slowly floats through the shot, and it wasn't that much fun. Here is a culmination of all that hard work. Definitely was a very challenging experience, but still quite fun. I wanted to end this section on Iroh giving advice to Zuko, and since this shot seems fairly easy, I decided to add it up into this video. The process stayed relatively similar to the ones I've shown prior, and here is that scene as well. At this rate, I will get to the final episode of the show by maybe like 2080, so I'm gonna sail on ahead to the second episode. This Dave Filoni directed episode is titled The Avatar Returns, and in this episode we have Zuko invading the Southern Water Tribe and dealing with the Avatar. So for this next attempt, I'm gonna focus on Zuko as he makes his presence known to both Sokka and Aang. In this shot, I move the full scene over to the right as we get Sokka sitting on his behind. This metal ramp looked a bit skinny, so I made sure to complete that first. The winter wonderland of snow was very easy compared to the ships in the prior scenes, and before I knew it, the background was all done. I did have a challenge in completing Sokka's body as he completely moves off the screen, but luckily the previous video attempts helped keep me sane. Due to how quick this scene is, I knew that all I had to do was draw in a blob that somewhat resembles Sokka. It doesn't matter if it looks perfect or not, so I worked on the outline for Sokka, and honestly it doesn't look great, but that's completely okay. I did the coloring and I feel like I made Sokka's head a bit too big, but you know, he needs a magnum head to fit his magnum brain. Luckily his big head doesn't slow him down and he's able to evade Zuko's firebending by tumbling over onto the next scene. The background was a bit too daunting because of this massive igloo, but I couldn't back down because I was in too deep. I completed the snow on the ground along with the fence made of snow before attempting this round behemoth of ice. I used my airbrush tool to get the overall color of this round shape and used an imported inking tool to work on the fine lines of the individual blocks of ice. After adding different colors to mimic the shading and the lighting, I feel good with how it turned out. After that, the rest of the background came pretty easily. I used the exact same mindset in my previous scene of understanding that Sokka didn't have to look perfect. I used a rough estimate of where his body would be and worked on the outline first and foremost. Luckily, Sokka must be super fast because his full body was in frame in no time. I also had this little task in filling out Sokka's deadly boomerang as he chucks it toward his fiery invader, and here we have Sokka tumbling in all his acrobatic glory. We see Zuko, the recipient of Sokka's boomerang, standing there menacingly. I was getting a little tired from doing these backgrounds so much, and I did read a lot of your comments in other videos about using AI and the generative fill feature in Photoshop. I can definitely see the appeal, especially for scenes like this where the background gets super repetitive, but that's for another time. For now, everything will be done by hand. Speaking of hands, I had to finish the outline of Zuko's hands, and honestly this was way easier than Sokka's weird 3-fingered gloves from the previous video. After the hands, I moved on to the boomerang. There's also an animation error I noticed in this frame where we see these random colored lines. Anyways, I got the boomerang done, and now we're able to view our banished prince gracefully evade the deadliest weapon known to man. I'm jumping ahead to Sokka sitting on the ground with a little, boo-boo on his head. I wanted to try something new, and instead of just doing a simple background which would make this scene feel very empty, I decided to add a couple extra characters. I did the outline for this mother character on the left, and I also added a son and his mom on the right. I feel like this makes the scene feel less empty, especially after coloring them in. I wasn't sure if this was a good idea at first, but after seeing them all with the color, I think it turned out pretty well. The snow came soon after, and here is Sokka rubbing his head in pain, while everyone just watches. Hope might be lost for our crew, but have no fear cause Boomerang is still here. I did another bout of Zuko's hands, and I'm really not too good at drawing them to begin with, so excuse these inconsistent drawings. I did the background like always, and it's pretty much the exact same thing as the previous scene's background, so I didn't think too much of it. But this scene was tougher than prior due to the camera moving up and down as Zuko reacts to getting hit by the boomerang. This was such a tedious shot, and I'm not really a big fan of using keyframes in the background because I have to make sure that everything lines up perfectly with the original, otherwise it starts to look really rough. But I decided to suck it up, and here's my best attempt. Despite its best efforts, Sokka's boomerang did nothing but anger our scarred antagonist. But luckily, Aang came sliding in to save the day, right on time. I moved the frame over to the right because I wanted Aang to have more time sliding through the shot. I felt like the scene was way too empty as well, and I did move on ahead to a further scene and counted 5 soldiers accompanying Zuko, but in our current shot there's only 4. So I decided to try to add another character to make the scene feel less empty. Instead of a mom and her son, I decided to add a more dangerous Fire Nation soldier. This was a bit harder since I had to make him front and center. The color definitely makes him blend in a bit, and luckily this overall scene is super short, so he's not too noticeable in a normal watch. Zuko gracefully falls to the sky as he lands on his head and as his helmet lands on his butt. This close-up scene was very fun to work on because not only did I get to draw Zuko's body as it contorts in weird ways, but also because there was minimal to no background work that needed to be done. Of course, what comes up must come down, and we have Zuko falling on his face in front of his crew. For this shot, I made sure to include the snow on the ground with the giant shadow cast by the ship. Can't forget about the wall in the back with the snow piled up from the ship's uninvited intrusion, and working on the snow was a lot more relaxing than the metal ships due to the lack of texture. Here's this completed scene of Zuko gracefully dancing through the air. And finally, we have our last shot of the video. Unfortunately, I noticed about halfway through that I forgot to press record. I know, rookie mistake. But I'll go through the layers so you can see exactly what I did. And I feel like a broken record every time I say this, but the background was fairly simple. The biggest challenge came from this gnarly looking sky with all the different clouds strewn across. But since the main point of the shot was on the penguin going to the right, I knew that I had to get that animation right. This otter penguin uses about 6 or so frames for its walking animation, so I just traced over the 6 frames, colored them in, and then cycled them through till the penguin was no longer in the shot. And there you finally have it. This video overall took me quite a while, mainly because I went on a trip for 5 or so days, and I didn't really have too much time to work on the video. Due to that, I ended up cramming quite a bit when I got back home. Hopefully the final product doesn't seem too rushed, let me know down below. And again, I'm not entirely sure how many more of these videos people want to see, but as for right now, I'm extremely thankful for the support the previous 2 videos I've got. I do plan on making more content including remastering Avatar, but I also want to make other videos as well. It could honestly be another art/entertainment related video, or maybe just a commentary video essay type. If you want to see more, please subscribe as it'll help me a lot. Don't forget to leave a like as well if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of this video, and most importantly, I really hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Until next time, bye.